Coming to you live from the palatial studios of PBJ Productions. Welcome to Patrick and BJ Talk Real Estate, where we talk about life, the universe, and everything as it relates to real estate. Hey everybody, it's BJ.
And Patrick.
And we're back talking all things real estate, and today we're talking about lakes and oceans.
Yeah, if you got it set in your mind that you have to have waterfront property, be it an ocean or a lake, well, in this video we're going to cover 10, there's more than 10 questions, especially when it comes to lake or lakefront, waterfront, oceanfront properties. But we have 10 questions that you must ask before you buy one of these.
Okay.
So, for let's set the groundwork first. You've gotten past like your needs and wants list, your proximity to amenities, school, work, those kind of things. You would go through this process for any type of house, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And then, I would start here with this question: is this a full-time residence? Or is it a part-time, like is it a short-term stay that you're at?
That would be important for sure, yeah.
So, is this going to be the second property or primary residence? And that I think will affect how you answer your needs and wants list with all your priorities and distance to somewhere else. What if it's important, like how far you need to be away or close enough to international airport?
Sure.
Things like that.
Yeah.
So that would be the first one. Get your needs and wants list out of the equation. Yeah. So when you do look at properties, all of those things are already answered. This is this area or these couple areas are acceptable for what you're looking for your priorities, and then proximity. Determining if it's in your budget.
Yeah.
Right. Because waterfront being lake, ocean, and it really does vary, but it is more expensive to buy waterfront properties.
Absolutely. And there's another part of expense that goes with that is maintaining a waterfront property.
Yeah. So with that maintenance, that additional cost, like with that extra value, your property taxes are likely to be higher.
Sure. And we talked about this at Cowichan. There are things that you have when we were at Cowichan Lake, and we shot an episode on waterfront properties.
We did specifically for lakefront properties.
Lakefront properties. Yeah. But one of the things is, depending on where you are in relation to the water, there's certain things you have to do to keep your home up that you wouldn't if you weren't near the water.
Right, exactly. There's more wear and tear, but that's all along the maintenance thing that you have to be aware of for your budget. Right. And insurance. Yeah. So because you're exposed to more weather. Sure. And if it's in a remote area, the insurance replacement cost of that property might be higher. So those are definitely things. I'm going to touch a little bit more on insurance later. Okay. But that's definitely in there. So I think number 3, knowing what you're going to use the property for. Sure. So an oceanfront property on the west coast is going to be different from the east coast. Let's say because we live on an island, Vancouver Island. It's a mountain range, and the weather is not the same, and the uses are not the same. Sure. So if you're a hardcore fisherman, on the outside of the island might be okay to have like a proper fisherman's boat. Yeah. But on the inside of the island, if you're like a pleasure craft, you're into sailing, well, maybe sailing in the Juan de Fuca Strait would be a better idea than sailing out into the open ocean, unless you're into that, right? Sure. Yeah. So knowing what you're going to use that property for before deciding and how are you going to use it. Sure. And I think part of it too, with what you're going to use it for, is there are some that are not for year-round occupancy either. They're considered recreational. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. Because there's different types of different types of real estate out there, and they have their different uses. Yeah. So I know I sold a recreation property on Lake Cowichan. Yeah. And it was right in the bylaws, maximum 6-month occupancy. Maximum 6-month occupancy? At any time. So that was that is a recreational zoning. Yep. Right then and there. Yeah. So those are great things to know. Well, perfect. that leads me to what are the allowable uses of the property?
Yeah. Sure.
And I'm not going just on zoning. Zoning is one of them. So if you wanted to build onto the property or put something up, what if you wanted to put a trailer on the property, you wanted to store something there? Well, make sure with the, not just the zoning regulations, but the local bylaw regulations to know what you can and cannot do on that property. And I'm going to take it further. If you wanted to landscape the property, you might not be able to like change landscape, garden, cut down trees, because there could be a protected area. In BC, we have a riparian area, so it's a certain amount of feet away or distance away from the water, the high water mark, that you're not allowed to like make significant changes. You might not be able to build a wall, a set of stairs, a boat ramp.
And I'll go even one step further. I had a client one time where on a property they ended up not buying, but a waterfront property, that it required an archaeological survey.
Thank you for bringing that up. I could take that off the list now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because there's a registry for that, especially, for building property.
Yeah.
So that is definitely one of the other things to be asking about, especially here in BC. Not sure what it's like in the rest of Canada, but definitely talk to your real estate professional there. They should be aware of all of those things.
Yeah.
But these are things to think about and ask. Also, now I'm totally lost track of exactly where I am, but we're like 5 or 6 right now. The water quality. So if you're on the ocean, that's one thing, right?
Sure, yeah.
But if it's on a lake, you want to know what the water quality is.
Sure. Before you go off from the ocean part of it, the one thing about the ocean, and I don't know if you want to call this water quality, but what happens when it's like the weather's been like for the last couple of days here? Where there are these massive windstorms where they shut down Esquimalt Lagoon, they shut down Ogden Point, the power went out everywhere, and all of these
roads
things.
are closed along Dallas waterfront.
Right. Right. But you live there, and so here comes the gigantic waves. Talk about water.
That's part of that maintenance, right?
Right.
Like, that protection. There's more. Like, what about okay, we're not going to go totally in order, but it's all good because how bad is the weather at different times?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And Googling the news, like, that's kind of like how I find a lot of things when I start like, I should investigate more.
Yeah.
But then that brings me to like, what does the seawall look like? Is there some erosion? Is there a wall that needs to be maintained that's already there? But that's perfect. Thanks for messing my
messing with your water quality. We were at water quality.
We were
going to fresh water quality. We hit the ocean. That's where I got sidetracked.
You know what? I'm gonna go from here. If you're not from here and you think you can swim in the ocean, that's gonna be pleasant. Get used to like 7-degree, 8-degree water.
No.
So if you're good with cold water, you do that thing. That's great. But for lakes, we're thinking about the quality of swimming, because sometimes there's a not a ban, but a health warning. Don't swim in the lake. It's got too much bird poop in there, right? And that can happen. And that results in an algae bloom, and that might not be healthy, either for yourself or for pets. So knowing the history of one of these lakes.
Sure. And that goes back to what do you want to do with it, the property? Exactly. If you're getting this property because you want to be able to swim in the lake, then be aware of what the history of that lake is. And if you're getting the property because you want to swim in the ocean, I suggest Hawaii.
Right? Okay.
I said that to somebody. I said, they said, do you swim, here in the ocean? It's like, no. For me to swim in the ocean, I need to be further in the south in the Pacific, like Hawaii.
I mean, like I have, but it's not like I'm going to do laps or like. You just kind of go for a dunk.
I did it to say
come back.
Yeah, I did it to say that I did it.
Yeah. So, but welcome to the Pacific Northwest.
But it's supposed to be good for you, right? This ice bath stuff. So.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. Okay, so we talked about the uses. We talked about change. What can you do on the property, riparian areas, protected. If there's any protected area lands nearby. Or we're getting near to the end. Is it a popular area?
Yeah, it's good to know.
You know, it might not be such a big deal on the waterfront, except for, let's say, in Victoria, you're on like one of these main drags where people just go and drive by these waterfront beautiful properties. So you have like
Beach Drive.
Yeah, you have a certain amount of traffic going by, right?
Yeah.
Or if you're near like even a beach on the ocean, there's people that come and visit and do their things. You know, if it's like a King George Terrace, a Gonzales Beach.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the one that comes to mind because it's right in the residential.
It's a beautiful spot, and you're going to have like that extra like activity. Maybe that's the thing you want, right?
Yeah.
And then on a lake, there's that summer season. You have a whole bunch of increased population, people, activities, maybe parties, maybe noise.
Yeah.
But just be aware of
Be aware of it.
Be aware of that.
Yeah.
If it's a busy part of the lake,
Right.
or maybe you have the ability to purchase something that's a little bit more remote and it's less traveled. So knowing really what the lake is like throughout all the 4 seasons,
Right.
Before making a final decision.
Sure.
On that. This is kind of specific to the house. Are you into sunsets or sunrises?
Sure.
So if you want to be on the east or west side of the lake, or north facing south, or south, and then of course, because we're in a basically subtropical rainforest or subtemperate rainforest, there's a lot of trees.
Yes, there are.
So even if you pick, one side of the lake or another, like how much shade do you want on the house? Do you want the sun on the deck in the afternoon?
Right.
Or
Sure.
do you want to be in the shade in the afternoon, right?
Yeah.
When it's like really hot.
Yeah.
So I think that's in part with like, how do you want to use the property?
Sure. Yeah.
Is it a full-time property or is it part-time? Because if it's in the summer, you might want to just be in the shade. You might want to have the trees there all the time. Go back to insurance.
Okay.
And the reason I want to bring up insurance is you want to ask if the house has ever flooded before.
Yeah.
Because the lake level,
Yeah.
more so lakes or
Lakes,
rivers, can increase in volume.
Sure.
Flood the property. Maybe it doesn't happen. Maybe it hasn't happened in X amount of years. But you still want to know when's the last time that's happened.
Yeah.
And specifically on the island, you really want to know if you're in a floodplain.
Yeah.
Because there's different areas are just affected differently.
Yeah.
And that might not even be on lakefront or waterfront, that kind of thing.
Sure.
But just because we're talking about waterfront properties, I would specifically be looking for that.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can find that out.
There's an awesome
example
website
that comes to mind, and not in BC, but my parents used to live in Medicine Hat right on the river. And so there was their house, then the road, which is basically a residential road, so it's not like a high traffic road. And then it's all ravine and river, and there's some parks and things like that. But come spring thaw, it would start to, there was in North Saskatchewan, so it would start to overflow the banks. And I remember one year, my mom said that they had sandbags all, around the front of the house, and they were given instructions to have a bag packed for each of them, and if they got the flood warning, they're gone.
Yeah.
Read something for their cats so that their cats are gone, whatever else. And so there's a history, obviously, in that area in spring, and just depending on how the breakup was and how the logs got jammed when they're going around the corner and all these other things, and the ice breaking and so forth. So, but there's a history there they knew that going in.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a really good point to bring up, and we talked about that in our other video. I don't want to say natural disasters, but like you want to have an emergency plan. If there's fires or if there's floods or whatever the case may be, but it's not really a question, but maybe it is. Like, how do other people handle emergency situations in, let's say, if it's in a rural, isolated area?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Now I'm still losing track of where I was, and I wanted to say a couple extra things. We talked about uses, and I forgot to talk about what are your allowed uses of the lake itself.
okay, yeah, that's important.
So if you wanted to have like motorized boats,
Yeah.
or it can only be like an electric boat,
Yeah.
or you're not allowed to have any boats at all.
Right.
So And if there is allowed, what are the speed limits? What are the activities? Is there a time that you cannot operate those motorized vehicles at that time? So usually that's pretty easy to be found. If it's not, then it's going to go back to Transport Canada rules. And then talking about maintenance of a seawall, if it's soil erosion, if that's a concern, but it goes back to like what kind of property do you want? Is it like if it's on an ocean, maybe high bank on a rock somewhere, maybe not a sea bluff where there might be an erosion issue. So you have to sort of decide on what kind of property you're looking for. If it's a high bank, sort of an easy access, or some challenge access, or completely walk on waterfront. So that will determine the price and value and desirability of that property at the same time. And this is like I wrote a note, like the off chance. City bylaws will have a requirement many times for lakefront properties to be hooked up to sewer.
Oh, okay.
I know it's something that you might not think about. You come from the city, you just think like you flush a toilet and it goes into the city. You know what? A lot of these rural areas don't figure out what kind of septic treatment system, septic treatment plant. Or if it's a field or whatever the case may be, this could affect the water quality of the lake. And I'm going to talk specifically for Langford right now. We already have a bylaw that everybody's supposed to be hooked up to sewer. By years ago. They've extended it over and over again. They allowed some leniency to hook up because of the cost,
the expense
associated with that. So you want to know specifically if that property is connected to sewer, because there's going to be a bill afterwards at some point.
Is it connected now, and is there an intention that it needs to be connected by a certain date?
So checking with the municipalities exactly what the services are for that property, and if there's any additional requirements. But that wraps up my 10 points, or our 10 points, with it, like 1A, 1B, 1C. We kind of get carried away because there are many questions that we don't want to leave anything out. But that should be a good starting point for anybody if they're investigating or thinking about buying waterfront property.
Sure. And if you think of something, maybe a question, or you think of something about a waterfront property that we haven't covered, put it in the comments, because we want to see that.
There was a comment on the last one when we were talking about lakefront property. It was an American from Texas, I believe. I don't remember the username. It was a while ago when I read this. He was talking about, because they make man-made lakes there. Here we're just used to like, we got lakes, we got mountains, we got snow, we got everything, right? We got the ocean. But over there, they've got man-made lakes. And if there's something goes wrong with, I guess, the system that made the lake, it could dry up.
Okay,
So that's beyond my expertise.
100%.
We don't really have man-made lakes, like maybe like a pond, but really.
Like St. Albert, I know we had some when I was a kid. But
So if you know more about man-made lakes or things to think about there, then I'd love to know more about that, just out of curiosity. It's not really relevant to our market area, but I always want to know more.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for joining us. Again, if you haven't, please take a minute, subscribe so that you don't miss anything that we cover. We're doing 3+ episodes every week right now. So you want to make sure that you stay up to date on that. And if you're looking for property in the Victoria area, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to help, or businesses or anything like that, because we cover that side of things as well. So,
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will catch you in the next video.
See ya.